Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this session. I just want to give a little shout out about this week as it is Global Entrepreneurship Week, and specifically it's Do It in Durham Week, which is BACD is the lead organizer for this week. It's our 11th year doing this event series, and it's a collaboration of Durham's business support, educational, and networking organizations who have come together to encourage and support entrepreneurs, job creators, and innovators who create economic growth in Durham region. So if you're looking to start a business, invest in a business, grow a business, we encourage you to do it here in Durham. And I just want to say thank you to our sponsors, premier sponsors, partner sponsors, community collaborators. Without their support, contribution, we wouldn't be able to host this event series. We have over 51 events, so it is a lot of work. So we do appreciate the ongoing support from our sponsors. And with that, I will hand it over to Farzeen. And thank you, Farzeen, for taking time to deliver this presentation this morning. I'm really looking forward to it. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Use the chat as a networking opportunity as well. Get to know each other. And yes, let's get the ball rolling. I'm excited.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for setting this up, for creating space for these kinds of conversations. Do It in Durham is such a fantastic initiative for bringing us all together for these kinds of conversations, and really appreciate your time this morning and joining. So we are an intimate group today, and so that means that we can get as chatty as we want. So feel free to use the chat feature here within Zoom. Feel free to speak up, whatever is most accessible to you. It's yours, and we're here to have the conversation with you in whatever way feels best. Okay. I hope that you can all see my screen here. So my name is Farzeen Foda. I'm really delighted to be chatting with you today as an entrepreneur myself as well, with a mighty little team of one. Really understand the trials and triumphs of kind of branching out on your own. So I really hope, if this is a journey that you're on, that you've had an opportunity to pat yourself on the back and just recognize how much courage and strength it takes to get to this point, and to really invest in understanding diversity and inclusion and how that can help you really set up your organization for success is going to take you leaps and bounds into success. So thank you for investing your time today, and it's a real pleasure to meet you. Really excited to have this conversation with you as well. And I'm coming to you from a human resources background. So spent a greater chunk of my career in the human resources space, kind of working between organizational design, talent management, change management, talent acquisition, or otherwise known as recruitment as well. And so I'm really honored today to be able to bring all of those different experiences into consulting, where I work with a lot of really great and many purpose-driven organizations across the not-profit as well as nonprofit sectors to help create equitable and inclusive human resources strategies that are fueled by diversity at the end of the day. So thank you for joining today, and I hope that you find this session inspiring and helpful, as well as take away some really great resources to help you tap into that diversity of thought and experience that you bring as an entrepreneur to your business, as well as that of your partners, employees, and the communities that you work with. So I see we have one more member join the group. So feel free to speak up. We're an intimate group here, so using the chat, raise your hand and speak up verbally, whatever is most accessible to you. We love the engagement. So thank you so much, Lindy. Right. So what is diversity, equity, and inclusion? Let's start there. So, really put it into simple terms that we crafted as questions. So diversity is really about representation. So when we're asking about diversity, we want to know, do we have a mix of different demographics, lived experiences, and perspectives around our table, whether that's within our own team, among our partners, among our vendors, our suppliers, are we really seeing the representation? And secondly, equity is about access. Does everybody have equal access to opportunity? to be actually able to be heard in that conversation. So great if we have everybody, but if we're not listening to everybody, that's not really equity at the end of the day. And inclusion is about the environment. Does everyone have a voice, and are their perspectives truly heard? So are we truly including all of the different voices that are there? We're not going to get the best value out of them if they're not included in the conversation. So just want to take a moment to ground us there. And if, again, you have any questions at all, feel free to use the chat, speak up, whatever is most comfortable to you. Okay. So we're in Canada. Diversity just makes sense. It's a fact of life of where we are. And I'm, honestly so privileged to be in a country that values diversity and inclusion. So I think I'm speaking to the choir here when I say that it just makes sense. And some of the stats really just speak for themselves on this front. And so if we're in businesses that are facing the public, or facing other organizations, we often see that not more often, organizations or individuals are looking to work with businesses that represent their values. And then, as well as we talked about earlier in defining diversity, equity, and inclusion, the limitations to those really close off new ideas, perspectives, and innovation that can help our businesses succeed at the end of the day. So if you're closing out great ideas, now we're limiting the great potential of the businesses that you run. And then, of course, we know from a more quantitative standpoint, the research has been done to find that ethnically and gender diverse organizations are actually more likely to financially outperform other organizations, particularly by about 36% for ethnically diverse organizations and 25% for gender diverse organizations. So the research has been done, and there's a lot there to show. And those are just two aspects of diversity. There's so many more that have a lot of really great economic value that we may lose out on if we don't tap into it. Okay. And ultimately, we know that diversity can help teams focus a lot more on the facts as well. This has been something that's kind of come up more in the behavioral psychology space, to find that teams that really do have diverse team members come together more around facts and ultimately come up with more creative and innovative ideas. So before I move a little further, I'd love to take some inventory of the group here. Tell me a little bit about, maybe raise your hand or share in the chat if the organization that you run today, if you are an entrepreneur, is it a business facing, like a B2B kind of an organization? Are you engaging more of the general public? What's kind of the business that you run? And feel free to drop it in the chat or speak up. Marlene, I'm looking at you. Yeah, tell me.
Good morning. My name is Marlene Marco. I'm the founder and leader at Heart of Networking, business women's organization here in Durham region. Well, started in Durham region. We're way beyond that now. And yes, we are business facing. And I believe that we are inclusive. Always working to improve that. But yeah, I wanted to come on today and really see if there are things that we're missing. And so that's an important piece for us, because we do work to help business women to thrive. So we want to help all business women. And then we also have, so we're primarily online, but then we also have in-person events, and always work to make them inclusive as well. And those are open to everyone, members, non-members, men, women, everybody.
Okay, awesome. All right, so you're more supporting other businesses and helping them thrive. So fantastic. I think you might find a few tidbits here that will help yourself as well as your members. I'll pause for a quick second if there's anyone else that would like to share their entrepreneur perspective. I'm looking at the chat as well. Oh, Kelsey, over to you.
Hi, I'm probably the odd one out here. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I heard about this through a friend, so I wanted to log on, as it's always something that I've been interested in, an interesting topic, and I actually do live in Durham, so I thought that that would be applicable. So yeah, just happy to be here to have the opportunity to learn.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. Great. That was great. Oh, sorry. Did I cut someone off?
Hi, Marcia Lou.
Hi,
Yeah,
Martha.
I hopped on as well just to see what I could pick up and learn. I do have a business. It's a business for people with disability and their supplies. And I'm a one-man show right now. And like Marlene says, you know, just try and be here, just see what tidbits I can pick up to expand the business. And I'd love to speak with Marlene later on, just to see how we could coordinate it and expand the business as well.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the purpose-driven attitude. I love the I'm in it to learn, and I love the new friendship that's just formed here. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, let's leave friends here. This is fantastic. I love it. So we're not limited to the slides here. We can also open up the dialogue for, you know, within and outside of the content that's here. So appreciate this. And so I think it goes without saying that, of course, diversity and inclusion is needed. And so if there's anyone that you find yourself needing a little business case for, here's a few nuggets that can help you. There is at this point in time, as of 2022, the estimated unrealized value of a mismatch in skill sets or skill vacancies in the Canadian economy is estimated to be around $25 billion. So this means that in layman's terms, there's about this much money sitting on the table because we're not effectively as an economy matching talent to value, right, at the end of the day. And so diversity and inclusion is a really great way to help clear the noise when it comes to talent and help match talent to value, which I know Marlene is so dedicated to doing in her work day to day. So thank you for helping to drop that 25 down a little lower. Inclusion can also help improve workplace productivity, mental health, physical health, and safety. So, you know, I think we can all attest to this day to day when we see that, you know, we feel included, we feel safe in the environments that we're in. That helps us be a lot more productive. It helps, you know, at the end of the day, when your close friend or partner is asking you, hey, how was your day today? That answer is more positive than it is negative. And a lot more research has actually been done around physical health and safety. So when we look at, you know, more of a plant sites and more operational kind of work, like physical safety is a really big part of that. And the more we have an inclusion and diversity mindset, we're actually seeing stronger linkages to physical health and safety actually covered there. Because again, if we can see strong connection, camaraderie, sense of inclusiveness and belonging, that's where we're seeing, you know, peers looking out for each other ultimately when physical health and safety comes into the picture. And then going back to kind of that lost economic value, so excluding really great talented people can lead to lost wages, lower lifetime earnings, negative employment outcomes, a lot of things that we don't like. And that's why we're here today, to avoid that. And so some of the value that we're missing out on when it comes to potentially where diversity and inclusion efforts really fall short can be in losing out on, of course, newcomers to Canada or any company or any country, older adults. And so this is becoming a really great area of emerging research in the space of diversity and inclusion, is with individuals living longer and often and many times, you know, recreating their careers at various points in their life and pivoting. We see individuals really taking on multiple careers over the course of their lifetime, and older adults, you know, what used to be that retirement age of 65, so thankful that that's gone away. And 65 is usually the beginning of a whole new chapter. I'm seeing Marlene smiling here. Yes, it can be a whole new chapter, and many have. And we see that as a huge area of ongoing economic value that many organizations really miss out on. Persons with disabilities, bring a lot of really great value and perspective to organizations. I love the example of closed captioning. So when, if you're ever in a noisy area nowadays, we always see kind of the closed captioning is there in a noisy environment. You see a news screen up and the text is there. That started to support the hearing impaired. And aren't we all a little hearing impaired when there's just, you're in a bustly place with a lot of noise? Now we need that closed captioning. And in supporting, the groups with disabilities, we actually supported everybody. And so I love that example. And I love to just continue to challenge all of us to think about what are those ways that in supporting those with disabilities, we're actually supporting all of us at the end of the day. And so leaving that out is potentially also leaving out or creating challenges for many more than just those with disabilities. Neurodivergent individuals as well, again, similar threads there, where we can create spaces that are more inclusive to neurodiversity. And so thinking about, where we create more kind of surprises or spontaneity may not always suit those that are more neurodivergent, and that can ultimately help everyone. But from a recruitment perspective, if that's something that comes up in your experiences, providing interview questions ahead of time, providing a lot more kind of here's what you'll expect kind of information. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcia, for chiming in here on the chat. So these kinds of supports that can just remove unnecessary surprises, unnecessary hurdles that really don't test your ability at the end of the day. And so from, how we serve our clients as well, providing a lot more kind of upfront communication about what you can expect and removing unnecessary surprises can go a long way just in itself in breaking down barriers for neurodivergent individuals. People of color, of course, women, and just so many more. I could go on for quite some time here talking about where we have so much opportunity to better include our populations, but these are just a few nuggets. I'll take a pause here if there was anything I said that kind of surprised you, or if there are any other groups or individuals that you think we're often kind of missing out on, but have so much potential to offer. And again, feel free to use the chat or just speak up. All good. All right, I'll take quiet to mean that I got it all. No, thank you so much. So I'll move us along. So here's where we're going to get into the meat of our conversation today. So as you're scaling and thriving in your business, there is a lot of diversity and inclusion and equity considerations that can help across each stage. So, whether in your early stages of kind of developing, starting up, kind of figuring out, what your niche is, to the actual delivery phase where you're just trying to get it right, get it efficient, get it refined, and deliver effectively, to your sustain and grow phase where what you're doing it well, and now you want to, how do we do more of it or expand into something else? And so there are really a lot of really great D&I considerations across these phases, which we'll chat through. And I also welcome you to share any that may come to your mind as well. Okay, I'm going to take a quick sip of water. So a lot of chatting. All right, so just, at a high level, in a nutshell, some of your kind of big ticket D&I opportunities in that early development and startup phase is leveraging mentorship and support to help build your diversity, equity, and inclusion into your operations. So I'm sure, Marlene, you see that a lot with the clients and teams that you work with. Really, it's about tapping into all those wealths of different resources and supports that are available to you as an early stage entrepreneur. And then getting into your delivery phase, now this is when you want to help. You may be hiring your first or second employee. You want to start thinking about building a diverse or inclusive workplace, and start to be able to serve diverse client bases as well. Okay. And then lastly, into your sustain and grow phase, which I know we're all very excited to get to, or we're already there and loving it. Now is where you're looking at continuing to hire. Maybe it's your 5th, 6th, 10th or more employee. You're looking at scaling and diversifying your marketing efforts or other strategic growth efforts to help you expand your reach, expand your offerings. Okay, so we'll get into these in a lot more detail in the following pages here. So we'll anchor ourselves down into stage 1 here, which is the develop and startup phase. So as we mentioned here, this is really where you're trying to, as entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs you work with, are looking to tap into diverse resources. So you're looking at programs, grants that can serve employees or serve entrepreneurs, and these can be specific to entrepreneurs from equity deserving groups. So those can be some of those categories we talked about earlier. Women, persons with disabilities, neurodivergent, those groups that are typically, unfortunately, excluded from the workplace. Those are what we call equity deserving groups here. And also many early stage entrepreneurs really benefit at this point from partnering with incubators. So these are organizations that provide startup support for budding entrepreneurs, to provide them mentorship or guidance and things like that. And so what we've got here on the side, and when you receive this material, these are all links to various resources. So I'll chat through some of them in a little more detail and how they can support either yourself as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs that you support, or others in your network. Okay, so obviously local, we had to start there, Invest Durham, the BACD here as well. So that goes without saying. A lot of great resources within your local region are fantastic in terms of providing access to resources, support, networking connections like the one that just formed today. So that's fantastic. Futurepreneurs, a really great organization as well to support a little more tech-focused startups and organizations. And they provide really great support in terms of mentorship, as well as sourcing funding for budding entrepreneurs and startups. So Futurepreneur is a really great one. I know they partner a lot with industry to help startups really scale and find partners within larger organizations. The Paro Center is one that specifically focuses on supporting women entrepreneurs as well. Not a lot of personal experience with them, but really did think that they were helpful to call out here in terms of a group that supports women specifically in their entrepreneurship journey. The Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson, has a digital media zone. So this also serves as kind of an incubator for helping slightly more kind of tech or social innovation organizations get off the ground with the support and infrastructure that a university can offer them. And then the second last one here is the Mars Discovery District. So this was a really great one. It's based out of Toronto, the Mars Discovery District, but they do have a startup toolkit that's linked here. The startup toolkit is fantastic because it actually has really from 0 to 100, all of the different resources down to templates and policies and tools that organizations that are just starting up might need. So you're looking for that very first job description template. You don't need ChatGPT for that one. There's a template already created. The document is there. You can just download it, edit it. You're looking for your very first policies around certain aspects of the employee experience. That's all there as well. And there's also a lot of resources outside of the human resources. So if you're looking for support around building a pitch deck or funding support and things like that, there's a lot of really great templates and tools sitting right within that link there. So really recommend it. They are based in the Toronto area and have lots of really great Entrepreneur Connect events as well. But at the very least, just the bare bones kind of tactical stuff is sitting right there and a really, really strong resource. And then more at the federal level, the Business Development Bank of Canada also offers a lot of really great supports for early stage entrepreneurs, as well as more mature entrepreneurs to get off the ground. Access funding primarily is the main tool there, but also access to opportunities and mentorship. Hi. So I know that was a mouthful. I'll take a moment to let you kind of to noodle and digest those. And these are not by any means the most exhaustive list of all the resources out there. We're very privileged to be in a province, in a country that has a wealth of resources to support entrepreneurs. And these are just a few. All right. So if there aren't any, I don't see any questions or comments, so feel free to use the chat. Feel free to speak up if you do have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer or circle back to you after with any further information that you may need. Okay. So I'll move us ahead, and feel free to direct your questions to any stage as we move along. So now we're into that deliver stage. So you've been into that whole startup journey, you're done with that chapter, and now you're looking to just refine your operations and get it right. And so here's where you may be, as we talked about earlier, hiring your first employee perhaps, or your second. You're starting to look at ways to deliver your products in more inclusive ways. You're looking to communicate a lot more inclusively. You may just be looking at joining sessions like this to see, what am I even missing? I'm not quite sure. And so this is that stage. And so a lot of really great resources to support you here as well. And so just when it comes to hiring employees at the base, at the bare bones, it's really great to familiarize yourself with Ontario's Employment Standards Act. So this, there are a lot of plain language summaries of this. Of course, if you are looking for the full legalese version of it, that exists as well. But really the plain language version of it will provide you with kind of the bare bones of what you would need to know as an employer to hire employees, managing all aspects of the journey through from hiring all the way through to, potential offboarding as required. So familiarizing yourself with that is the best advice that we can provide to any starting up entrepreneur that's looking to hire their talent. And of course, that doesn't replace legal advice. So engaging a strong lawyer is also a great way to support yourself, protect yourself as well as your employees. Really did want to call out from a disability perspective, a really great resource is the Ontario Disability Employment Network. They have a lot of really great resources to support employers in hiring those with disabilities. And so they have some really great initiatives, including one program that offers wage subsidies to support the hiring of individuals with disabilities. And I think in particular, it's those hard of hearing. But that's not by no means the extent to the extent of their offerings at all. Lots of really great training as well for employers to help understand the considerations that go into hiring and supporting those with disabilities and including them all the way through. So that's a really fantastic resource for anyone looking to tap into more diverse talent and create more inclusive environments. Specifically from that hiring perspective as well, Lime Connect and Specialist Sterne are two really great organizations that, again, are not the only ones, but a few that really come to mind on this topic when it comes to supporting those with disabilities. So Lime Connect is one that works very closely with organizations to provide support and mentorship in guiding you through the process of adequately supporting someone with a disability in finding meaningful employment with an organization. And Specialist Sterne does the same thing, more specific to neurodiversities. So fantastic, really purpose-driven organizations that are making meaningful strides in helping, again, drop that $25 billion number a little lower. Just partnering with colleges and universities is a really great way to tap into diverse talent as well. There's just fantastic breadth of students that represent the mosaic of diversity that is our beautiful province. So engaging colleges and universities are always open doors when it comes to finding partnership opportunities for students to engage in careers. Okay. And lastly, around communications. So the University of Waterloo has put a lot of thought into this topic and created an inclusive communications guide. So, I won't get into all the nuts and bolts of words we should use and words we shouldn't use, because they do change all the time, and our knowledge continues to evolve. I'm seeing some smiles showing up because it's so true, right? So there's a lot of language that's used in the past that perhaps doesn't feel as right today. And there may be language that we use today that we continue to learn from and evolve. So, the best of that knowledge today is in some certain guides and resources, and the University of Waterloo has put some really great thought into creating that. So, thinking about instances where, you're sharing out a newsletter, you're sharing out printed material or digital material, thinking about not only the words we use, but even how they're presented. Is the font big enough? Is the contrast there? And so the AODA provides a lot of those guidelines as well for digital as well as print, to make sure that any material is accessible. And when we don't provide potentially captions for pictures, that can be challenging for screen readers to pick up, and for those who may be visually impaired to be able to fully absorb the material that's in front of them. So there's a lot of really great considerations that come into how we communicate to then get our information and get our really great services out to diverse populations. Okay, I'm looking at the timer at 11:33, so please, we have a little bit more time, but again, if there's any questions, feel free to speak up, drop it in the chat. We're all friends here. Hey, so we've gone through this long journey as entrepreneurs. We built it up. We've delivered amazingly. Oh, I see, Kelsey, you have a question. Over to you.
Hi, yeah, sorry, it's not a question, and I meant to say this earlier when you were speaking about people with disabilities and closed captioning specifically for meetings and things like that. And I couldn't remember the name of the program. I mean, I'm sure that people have heard of it. I couldn't remember the name of the program, so I was trying to message some of my coworkers in the meantime while you were speaking here. But I thought it was really interesting because I was in a meeting one time and there was somebody that was using this program, and like I said, I don't know if other people have heard of it, and I haven't, but it was the first time I had heard of it, and it was really helpful for him. Specifically, it took meetings for the notes and everything. So I don't know, I was just wanting to share that.
Okay, took meeting notes. Yeah, I often use, I don't know if it's the same thing, but taking us a little off topic, but yeah, this can also actually be a very strong accessibility feature and helps everyone. I often use an AI note taker for meetings that I'm in if I'm very confident that there's gonna be a lot of speakers and a lot of really great takeaways and more than I can remember in a conversation. So we often use a note taker, which is fantastic because it just kind of adds on as like a person in a meeting. And then it transcribes all of the conversation into a note. And so it's great in terms of kind of due diligence from the perspective of kind of avoiding broken telephone. But also, again, from a neurodiversity perspective, there's many that are more verbal learners or more oral learners. So reading as opposed to just hearing something over a meeting can go a long way. And many organizations kind of prefer to just kind of chat it through, and that may not always be conducive to everyone. So note takers can be fantastic for that and really summarize all the conversation. So AI is a great thing sometimes. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for sharing that. So as we get into the final and growth stage of our organization, I feel like we've been through an entrepreneurship journey with you all through this call. So we're now in that sustain and grow phase. So we are looking at how are we expanding our reach in terms of our suppliers, our vendors, our partners, our staff, to create more inclusive branding and marketing to help expand our reach. We want to foster inclusion through perhaps events or activities or other activations that we may have in our communities to help engage a broader network. And so there are some really great resources to support us in doing that. And then, as we've talked about earlier, supporting equitable employment practices as well. Okay, so just a couple of resources we wanted to highlight here. So Simon Fraser University out west has, and I love grounding things in research. So this university has already done a lot of the heavy lifting for us and put together a very comprehensive inclusive events checklist. I love this resource. It's a really, really fantastic one for any kind of events that you might be holding, from, you know, a small gathering to a graduation ceremony. You know, how can we make those events inclusive in terms of the space that we use, the lighting that's there, the kind of heights and distribution of chairs and tables. These are things that often are can be missed more easily when we don't have diverse perspectives. We may not realize that we need you know, certain mixes of accessible features within a space. So there can be physical space requirements or accessibility supports like that, including other things like, what time of day are we holding this? Is this conducive to, you know, our team members that may be joining who are caregivers, or, you know, have other kind of commitments throughout their day? So considering the time that events are held, the physical space, and as well the communications around those events. You know, we often hear from just a workplace perspective, hey, let's meet after work for drinks. Like, not everybody feels comfortable with a certain environment like that, right? And so that can tell someone who maybe isn't drinking for various reasons, particularly not alcohol, maybe I'm not welcome there, but you are. So let's be conducive and think about our language, the kind of space that we meet up in. You know, certain environments like bars, for instance, they're darker. They may not have that kind of variety of seating, though some may. So these are just important considerations when it comes to event planning for any kind of group, whether internal or external. Okay. And then, of course, the Employment Standards Act, it was worth repeating at this stage as well, because it continues to support employers of various sizes through to your very first employee to your 100th or more. The Employment Standards Act will really help delineate the supports that you or considerations that you may need to bring in depending on the size of your organization. And then the last really great resource that's out there more recently is the 50-30 challenge. So this was something that was formed in a partnership between our government as well as the Diversity Institute at the Toronto Metropolitan University. And the 50-30 challenge is really a pledge that organizations of any size can sign up for. And it's just a really commitment to having 50% gender parity and 30% representation across other kind of aspects of diversity, not just gender. Recognizing that there's so much more to diversity than just gender or just race or just something else. So the 50-30 challenge is a really great way for any organization of any size. You know, my organization is one that has signed this pledge as well. Though we are a team of one, we don't know where we're going to grow. So at least today we do have at least the gender bit down. So that's just a really great resource for any organization at any size to pledge their commitment to diversity and inclusion. Okay, so I know we're kind of reaching the end here in terms of our formal content. So I did want to take an opportunity to just take some inventory of what we've learned today and some reflections that perhaps you're coming out of today with. So, you know, reflecting on the thought and of diversity of thought and experience that you bring as an entrepreneur. You know, we've talked about some specific aspects of diversity, but the diversity of thought and experience that you bring is so much more than just what you appear as to the outside world. You know, what other diverse experiences have you had? You know, working within and outside of this country is a source of diversity as well in terms of thought and experience that you bring or that others might bring. And so as you kind of consider, you know, what are those other perspectives that perhaps I'm missing today in my business operations or otherwise, you know, just thinking about what are those other sources of potential diversity that you may not be seeing today. what are experiences that you're able to speak from your experience? Or what are experiences that you're able to speak from, and which perspectives do you think you may need to seek more of? So, as you think of what you bring to your work today, are there any perspectives that you think, we don't really have that much of that voice happening? So just taking inventory to understand what is there today and perhaps what perspectives may be missing can be a really helpful exercise in kind of helping you identify what pockets of or what kind of individuals you might want to engage a little bit more when it comes to forming partnerships and engaging a new workforce for your organization. And so thinking about ways that you can explore these other perspectives and bring them into your day-to-day. So is it networking opportunities like this? Is it other community forums that you may have access to? What might those be? And how might they shape your business strategy? So there's just some questions that can kind of help get the ball rolling in your mind, and also kind of help engage anyone else that you may be working closely with. All right, so we talked about some aspects of diversity, and it's always great to kind of take inventory within ourselves. So no need to necessarily share out loud, but just as you reflect on these, what are your intersectionalities? So this is maybe a term you might come across sometimes in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space around intersectionality. So recognizing that different aspects of diversity, such as gender and race, you may have multiple of those, right? When it comes to gender, race, socioeconomic status, caregiver status, otherwise, we are a mix of all kinds of different identities. And it's the hybrid, the average of all of those that are creating what we are and the experiences that we bring to our day-to-day. So you just take a minute to reflect. Are you a parent? Are you a caregiver? Are you a person with a disability that's either visible or invisible or episodic? Are you a person of color? Are you neurodivergent? Are you a newcomer to Canada? From a gender perspective, are you a woman, a man, cisgender, transgender, or non-binary? Are you an older adult? Are you a youth? Or are you a person with mental health challenges? You may find yourself ticking a few of these, or just a couple, but these are all different aspects of your identity that you bring to your business day-to-day, that others bring to their interactions with you as well, and that are all really great considerations when you're looking at how to strengthen your business, strengthen your footprint, and expand your reach. Awesome. So perhaps a little exercise. I know we're actually right into the 15-minute mark, so I do also open it up to any questions that may be coming to the surface. So I don't see any just yet. So maybe we can start our little brainstorming activity, and that may spur some questions here. So drop it in the chat or feel free to speak up. What are some ways that you think, either in your day-to-day activities, or if you're just thinking about companies that you interact with on a more regular basis, what are some ways that we can elevate our marketing and outreach efforts from a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion? Are there any thoughts, any considerations are coming to mind? And whatever is most accessible to you, feel free to share it in the chat or to speak up. The gears are turning. All right. So let's share a couple and see if any more come to mind. So offering resources in multiple languages. This can be a really powerful way that our marketing and communications efforts can go a long way in including a broader segment of our populations. Hiring, not only just hiring, but empowering multilingual staff to use their different languages to engage diverse populations more effectively. Using a blend of audio, visual, and written content. So we often assume certain things in terms of what people might prefer to absorb information with, but offering a blend of those can go a really long way in making sure the information we're trying to impart is available in all the ways that make sense. Considering accessibility of design in terms of color, font size, contrast, So again, this is something that often kind of falls to the wayside in terms of what just looks prettiest, but what's most accessible. Larger font sizes can go a long way in supporting really everybody at the end of the day. Contrast as well. So when it's digital or print, looking at how we're creating strong contrast between the background and the foreground of text. So sometimes we might love that gray on that beige background, but it's just not going to do the trick. So we may want to shift that to a black against a white background. And there are some really great tools online that you can test out. If you are creating marketing material, you can pop in different color codes and it will assess if the contrast is sharp enough to be accessible to most individuals. So again, the AODA is a really great set of guidelines around that, as well as a lot of really great resources there that can help in terms of contrast. Font size when print, at least a minimum of size 12 is kind of the universal. Even in terms of font style, there's a lot of funky fonts out there and they all look really, really cool. But, what are the ones that are most easy to interpret and understand? And so, serif fonts like your Times New Roman are sometimes a little bit more accessible as they have that serif that kind of connects words as well. So that's a little bit more of a technical piece, but something that we can always consider in terms of how we market and communicate. Did that spur any thoughts? I see a comment in the chat. I think attending sessions like this, taking the opportunity is helpful to make yourself well-rounded and contribute to conversations you may not be a part of otherwise. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for that. Are there any thoughts or comments on these or anything further that you think can be done in terms of marketing and communication, either from your own experience, your own marketing and communications, or ones that you've seen out there in the public domain?
I agree with Kelsey. This is my first time doing an online networking like this, and it was very informative. I really learned a lot, especially, speaking on the communicating part with people with disability. That's close and dear to my heart. So just looking at that and just seeing that things are being taken into consideration is awesome. Thanks.
Fantastic. I love that, Marcia. And there's so much more than these 4 bullet points out there, but these are kind of the ones that have really rung true for me and some of my past experiences and a lot of kind of my learning as well, honestly, in this space. And, we're on it, we're all constantly learning and unlearning those things and continuing to question assumptions that we come into situations with. So I think if you don't leave with anything today, one thing that we can always take away and a great way to sort of embark in diversity and inclusion is to park some of our assumptions. So if we're assuming that everyone can stand at these high tables, that's an assumption we need to call out in ourselves and say, well, am I assuming that or is it fact? Maybe an assumption. Am I assuming that everyone will be able to read this teeny tiny font against this faint background? That may be an assumption that we're bringing into our conversations. And so they may not be as explicit as that, but just to provide an extreme example. Okay. So just one more activity, I think here. How might you leverage D&I in terms of physical space? So we just talked about kind of the marketing and communications and how you receive information. If you do, I don't know if any of our team members here are engaging in the design or use of physical space. But again, perhaps from your own experience or ones that you've experienced in your own day-to-day walks of life, what are some ways that we can think more about DE&I in terms of physical space?
Can you provide us with an example?
Yeah, we can just bump ahead to the list here so and see where if these get the gears turning some more. So some examples may be offering accessible entries and exits from physical spaces so that Any physical space should likely already have that kind of into consideration to make sure that there's a good exit away from an entry point. But if you're kind of you're creating spaces within a let's say you've got like a community center space and you're creating kind of sub areas within, just thinking about accessible entries and exits, making them kind of wide enough, frequent enough, adjacent to each other. We talked about this earlier in terms of social events. So offering a mix of different kinds of seating options, high and low tables and chairs, so that we're allowing seating and we're allowing a variety of seating as well. And so this also came from a lot of kind of personal experience in the corporate world, where there are sometimes assumptions about, like, you get to a space and there's like not a single chair in sight because it maybe doesn't look pretty, but now that's potentially very tiring or straining for individuals who may not be able to stand for all this time against a high cocktail table. Yeah, harder to think of off the top of your head. So totally fair. And just the last one here, but definitely not the definite last one, providing channels for clients or staff to raise accessibility needs. So, when planning for an event, and you'll see this if you check out the Simon Fraser University's event checklist, just including diverse groups in your planning process is just a great way in itself to avoid potential pitfalls when it comes to physical space, and also creating channels for individuals to raise accessibility concerns that may be physical, but even non-physical in terms of timing of events, avoiding particular days of observation, right? Having certain things happening, having an event happen on a day that perhaps falls on a significant religious holiday, or otherwise that certain individuals may be observing or not, but may still be an important reason to avoid. Awesome. Yeah, providing virtual options. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Absolutely. That's a huge one. So if you can't adjust your physical space, provide a virtual option.
Yeah, like for me, like I said, I'm not from this entrepreneurial world. I work for government, but I do have experience, obviously, like working for government in the corporate area. So that's been, I mean, especially since COVID, that's been a huge adaptation for a lot of people, whether it's going into going in office to kind of just surround yourself with people, or just doing things from the comfort of your own home. Everybody learns differently, obviously. So yeah, it's been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge physical accessibility, is just to be able to do it from home and not leave, right? Obviously, sometimes that is helpful and necessary. So just even considering when we are bringing everyone together, is that intentional? Is it beneficial to actually be in person versus is this something that can be done virtually? So using in-person time and physical space intentionally is also a very strong accessibility factor. So thanks for raising that. Right, and I see Lindy has said really good examples and things to consider in planning and documents sent out. Yes, absolutely. There's so much there in terms of the things we can do to just make our information more accessible. All right, and so that really leads us to the end of our discussion here today. So I hope that you found this engaging and interesting, and you took away a few important tidbits. So as I mentioned, my name is Farzeen. I'm happy to connect with all of you offline and continue this conversation as it would support you. You can reach me by email here. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is just as it appears here, Farzeen Foda. So those would really welcome any continuation of this conversation. As I would imagine, if I did this session again in a year, there'll be a lot of brand new learning, because we continue to evolve, we continue to learn, as I'm sure you will as well in your journeys. So thank you so much for your time today. And I do open it up to you for any final closing comments, reflections, or questions.